Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Perform Happy podcast. My guest today, Dr. Brittany Lapinski, is a doctor of physical therapy, a gymnastics coach, a former level 10 D1 gymnast, and a mom of two. She's got
Yep.
everything I like to talk about covered. Brittany, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and fun fact for the people listening, Rebecca's ADHD made it so that we get to record this again. So we're convinced this is going to be the best interview ever, and it was meant to come out at this time. And so just to out myself on this, we're doing it again, and it's going to be
Things
awesome.
happen. Things
Yeah,
happen. Always for a reason, right? Always for a reason.
I think so. So would you just tell us a little bit about your gymnastics career, first of all, and what inspired you to take this career path?
Sure. I did gymnastics for 16 years. So I started when I was 6 or 8. I trained locally near me for a long time. And then I ended up changing gyms and driving an hour to and from practice every day when I was about a level 9 or level 10. And I ended up getting injured a lot. And that's kind of what inspired me to become a physical therapist and to go down this road. But long story short, I had a lot of injuries when I was younger, and then I had some more severe injuries as I got older. So my junior year of high school, I tore my ACL in my right leg. My senior year, I tore my ACL in my left leg, and I still ended up going on to do Division I college gymnastics at Northern Illinois University. Go Huskies! And it was quite the journey. I ended up also, although I was still coming back from injury my freshman year of college, I ended up also injuring my knee my junior year of college. And it's been a long road. I've had 5 knee surgeries. And I always say, and I say this to clients I work with now, I wish there was a me when I was younger, because although I had some great physical therapists and I had some great personal trainers that I worked with, no one really understood my brain, what it took to do what I wanted to do, and how gymnastics worked from a dynamics perspective, from a biomechanical perspective, from what I was going to be asking of my body to be able to do this sport after 2 knee surgeries for 4 more years until I was 22. And I wish I would have had someone to at least communicate that with, that would really understand where my brain was at. So I am now a physical therapist. I've been doing it for 13 years. I went to physical therapy school and told them right off the bat that I only wanted to work with gymnasts. They told me I was crazy. I would never make it in the profession. And here I am, only working with gymnasts and loving every moment of it. So,
Yes, there are, I think, enough injured gymnasts in the world to keep you busy, unfortunately.
definitely,
That's
unfortunately, but
a big
there's
part of
also this whole push for injury prevention, which is a huge part of what I do too. So,
Yes. Okay. So, okay. First, I just want to touch on this kind of myth that you busted, or I don't know if things are different now, but someone who injures both knees in that way as a high schooler, for a lot of people, that's sort of like, oh, that's your D1 death sentence. Like that, nobody's going to want you. So, can you talk about how you navigated that and how your coaches worked with you through that process?
yes. So that was heartbreaking, right? Have such a major injury as a junior, I thought for sure I was done. That first ACL, I thought for sure I was done. I was actually a level 9 at the time. So I was a level 9 junior. I wasn't even a level 10 junior, which is, I hear so many people, I get on calls with kids all the time that are like, well, I'm never going to make it because I haven't been a level 10 since I was in 8th grade. And it's just not true. So yes, it was heartbreaking. I had recruiting visits and all of these things and big offers. Even after my first ACL, I had a full ride offer somewhere, and they ended up pulling it when I tore my second ACL. So yes, it was hard. It was very hard. I had I don't know if anyone's familiar on this podcast with Dan Miller, but he was kind of a big name in Region 5, at least at the time. And he was my coach, and he was so encouraging, constantly helping me try to live through my dream. He made phone calls for me to try to get me on a team. I mean, he was just a wonderful asset. My parents were hugely invested in helping me live that dream. And at the time, you had to send out tapes, because I'm kind of old now, but you guys all have social media, but I had to send out tapes. So we had tapes made and things sent out. And the most important thing that I always tell gymnasts who are in an injury situation or are not a 5th-year level 10 by the time they're trying to get recruited is college programs care a lot more about who you are as a person than just your skill level. And I was a very hardworking athlete. I had a really positive attitude. Even when things were really hard, I was uploading videos of me conditioning and training and doing drills and stretching and, uploading it and putting it all and compiling it into the CD that I had to send off to these colleges. And I remember saying to my mom and my coach and saying, no one wants to see me train a Jaeger drill. They want to see me do a Jaeger. They want to see me catch a Jaeger. They don't want to see me do the drill. And Dan actually was the one who said, record it, put it in the video, put everything you can in the video, put your old routines in the video from 2 years ago of you hitting at whatever state meet or whatever it was, and put it all in the video. And I tell girls all the time that it is so much more than your skill set. It is your work ethic, your attitude, your grades, what you're going to contribute to the team from a team camaraderie perspective. My freshman year of college, I didn't compete at all. I was still recovering from my ACL, but everyone knew I was there. I was loud. Made sure that my teammates knew I was there, and it was hard for me to make lineup. And I walked on a team. I did not get a scholarship. And I walked on and I tried to earn a scholarship. And I'll tell you, I didn't earn a scholarship all 4 years. And it wasn't the be all end all. I thought having a scholarship made it different, but it didn't. It didn't make it different. So I always tell girls, I'm like, show who you are. Be a strong personality. Be someone that's going to be a teammate. Be someone that's going to be someone that the team can rely on, regardless if it's your skill or your attitude in the gym. Be hardworking and keep showing up. So it was hard to navigate, very hard. The scholarship never happened, but the spot on the D1 team did. And I finished the full 4 years, and I'm proud of myself for that because that was hard.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's so inspiring because I think there's such this like all or nothing. I mean, that's gymnastics. All or nothing, black or white, perfect or, scholarship or bust, D1 or like, and I'm always like, well, yeah, dream big. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do not settle. If you have a dream and you have a growth mindset, you can make it happen. I watched that movie, Rudy. I don't know if you've seen Rudy.
No, I haven't. But
Okay. The old parents out there know about Rudy, who's like this football kid who's not good enough and he's too small, and he becomes like the janitor at the Notre Dame locker room, and it's, he's like, I'm going to Notre Dame, and everyone's like, cool.
right.
Okay. Good luck with that. So go watch Rudy. It will make you cry if you're a mom and you're
Oh my
emotional when you
gosh.
watch sweet movies. But I don't know. I'm the kind of person who I'm like, yeah, go. Like walk on to UCLA. Like do what you got to do to get your dream.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you got to be realistic at the same point. But like as far as let's stick with injury. I can get on a tangent here. But how much is mindset
So
important when
much.
it comes to people like getting back to sport from your perspective?
Yeah, it's so much mindset. But I'm going to backtrack just for a second to play off of your Rudy movie thing. I actually sent a tape to Florida Gators, right? I had no idea that there wasn't a chance I was going to get on that team. They had their recruits decided from 4 years ago, but like you said, like dream big, right? I sent the tape. They actually sent it back, which hurt a little bit, but you know what? Dream big, right? Because what if they had a spot and they said, I like this girl. I like, what she brings to the table. I'm going to take a chance on her. And I ended up being a Florida Gator. I never know if you don't try. You never know if you don't try. So, but the injury perspective and the mindset piece is so big. And it's not to say you're not going to have ups and downs. It's not going to say that at some point during those recovery processes, I didn't want to throw in the towel. I didn't want to say, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Or get really down or sad. Those are all important emotions. And I think sometimes, at least it was a struggle. It was a struggle to pull myself out of the hole for a little while and to say, I'm going to do this again, especially after that second ACL tear within the same year as my first. And I'm faith-based. So part of it for me was, what am I doing? Is this a sign, right? Is this a sign that I need to call it? Is this a sign that I need to be done? And you know what? I just kept showing up. Somehow I just kept getting to the gym and I just kept going to physical therapy and I just kept training. And all of a sudden here I was, with this walk-on position to a D1 school. And I was like, okay, well, this is the path, right? This is the path I'm going to take. And I used to spend a lot of time. My mom actually was a huge asset to pulling me out of the hole. And she used to make me, I hated this so much when I was a kid, but she used to make me sit at the end of practice and write down 3 positive things that happened every day. Like when I was in a really bad place after my injuries, you have to write down 3 positive things that happened. She's like, I don't care what they are. It could be that your leotard was pretty that day. It could be that your hair didn't fall out of the bun. I don't care what they are, but you have to write down 3 positive things. And without that, I don't think I could have seen the positive. So sometimes it's really about reflecting on what went right, even though a whole lot went wrong, and getting through that mindset piece of the world's not attacking you. Nobody's after you. Nobody's trying to ruin your life. The ACL isn't going to ruin your life. You're going to get past that. You're going to push through that. You're going to recover from that, regardless of gymnastics or not. You have to. You don't have a choice. And just recognizing that it all works out in the end. It all leads to something. I can look back now and say, if I didn't have all those injuries, I would not be doing what I'm doing right now from the perspective that I get to do it from. I wouldn't know what to say to a kid that had major injuries on a call if I didn't have all of that. So it all comes together, and it's so hard to see when you're like 13, 14, 15. So hard to see, but getting your mind right is probably 90% of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like you said something really simple but profound, that if you just keep showing up, I mean, that will get you through your mental block. That will get you through your injury. That will get you through college, graduate school. I mean, it's like anything, your work, a marriage, like all of the things in life that are worthwhile. When it feels hard, if you have that, just that like kind of slightly bigger picture perspective of this too shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
This is hard. It doesn't mean it's going to be hard forever. And then you just one foot in front of the other and just kind of just do what's in front of
Yeah.
you. I mean, that's sort of the answer to life from my perspective. That's how you get everything you want in life, is like just be in it and take a step and do what you can. And like, and then the mindset is what fuels it. And also, like you mentioned, your mom, your support squad. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how do we do these hard things in life? Well, not alone. I mean,
No,
that's why I quit, was because I did it alone. I tried to do a mental block alone.
you can't do it alone. You just
No,
can't.
nope,
You
I
can't.
couldn't.
I know I could not have done it. I know I would have quit the sport. I remember coming home after like my first semester in college, or maybe I don't know, it was like halfway through college. And at that time in college gymnastics, season is starting. It's like December, right? And if you're going to compete, if you're going to make lineup on a big team, they keep you there to train for Christmas break. And they sent me home and they said, you're not going to compete this year. The chances of you making lineup in these first few meets is slim to none. So we'll send you home, go enjoy Christmas with your family. And I remember coming home and saying to my mom, I'm done. That's it. What am I trying to do? This is stupid. I'm never going to make lineup. I'm just a walk on, all of these things. And she said to me, and I'll never forget it, I was standing in the driveway about to drive back to school. And I was like, I'm not doing this. And she said to me, you have to finish what you started. You took this spot. You took this spot from another kid that could have had your walk-on spot. You have to finish the year. Like, you have to show up every day and you have to just finish the year. And like you said, it was about showing up. And so I showed up with a sourpuss look on my face, however I was feeling that day. But I showed up every day and I made it through 4 years because I showed up. And I could have easily quit, but my mom was there saying, you don't get that opportunity yet. You took this opportunity from someone else that wanted it. So you're going to see it through at least for the year until they can fill that slot. And then you're going to show up and you're going to see how you feel at the end of the year. And if she hadn't done that, talked me off the ledge, I don't know that I would have done 4 years. So that support system is everything. It really is. And I feel for you not having that, because I can't imagine. Gymnastics is really hard. Like, it's really, really hard. And it's everything to you when you're a kid. I mean, it is your first love. It is your first passion. It is the first thing that you literally fall in love with, and you don't even know you're falling in love with it. And to not have someone, love is hard. And to not have someone say to you, like, you can do this, I can't imagine being in that position. So kudos to you for at least, trying to do it on your own. I can't imagine how hard that was.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of athletes do. They try to be injured on their own. They try to deal with their fears on their own, and it's just not efficient. We've got
Not.
there's yeah, like you have to, in order to get through either of these things, if you're coming back to practice from any kind of confidence setback, it requires so much communication with you and your body, you and your mind. You have to have a good relationship with yourself, but then you also have to be willing to tell coaches what you need. And
Yes,
that can
that
be
is so
really
hard.
hard. I mean, so
Yeah.
how do you educate your athletes on their role in the communication as they're returning to sport? What are your tips?
So there's a few things. So one of the things you'll see me talk about on my Instagram all the time is autonomy and ownership over your process in your life. Because I think a lot of times as gymnasts, we are very used to being put in a position of following direction and not having a lot of say. Now, I think that is changing in the industry quite a bit. And I think gymnasts are feeling a lot more comfortable in being able to say what they need to say. But it wasn't always like that. I mean, it wasn't like that for me. So it
No,
was
no.
hard to use my words for a long time. But the importance of owning what you're going through and being able to articulate that is something that will carry through your entire life. You need to be able to tell people what you need. Otherwise, it's very hard for people to know how to help you. You think that they know how to help you. You think in your brain, like, well, obviously, I just hurt my knee, so I'm going to need help. But they don't necessarily know that. And to be able to say to your coaches, like, and I, as a coach, I love when gymnasts do this. It makes my heart so happy when they come up to me and they say, I had a real bad day, like a really bad day. And now I'm here at the gym because my mom made me come and I really didn't want to be here, but I had a really bad day and I just don't know how much I have. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to sit there and say, use that as an excuse and we're not going to practice and let's sit around and mope about it. But to know that going into that is huge. So, I mean, being able to go to your coaches when you're dealing with an injury or a mental block or a fear and say, this is where I'm at and I don't know how to get through it. Please help me. That is literally why coaches are there.
Mm-hmm.
That makes our job 1,000,000 times easier. If you are open and honest, there's so many times I'm coaching a kid and they're just off and I know they're off and I don't know why they're off. And I don't know until halfway through practice or the end of practice when they come up and they're like, man, I was just having a really bad day. My boyfriend broke up with me or whatever was going on. And I look at them and I go, you should have told me that 3 hours ago. We could have done something about it. So communicating that piece is hard because a lot of gymnasts are going to look at their coaches or their parents or their physical therapist or whoever it is and be like, they're an authority figure. How do I use my voice? But we're just people. And a lot of times we're just people who have been exactly where you're at. And so if you can explain it to us, we usually are pretty open-minded about how to help you get through that thing or put it on hold for the day or whatever we need to do to then move forward because the only way to go is forward. So we have to figure out how to get there. And sometimes it takes more than you just trying to do it on your own. So
Yes. And sometimes it takes reminders. I used to tell the kids I coach to keep wrapping the thing so that I'll remember you're modifying. Like I need a visual
right.
reminder because I'd be like, why are you over there sitting down? She's like, I have a broken ankle. I'm like, oh yeah, just
Oh
kidding.
yeah.
I have 13 of you to try to keep straight. I'm so sorry. Never mind. Forget I said anything. I was like, if you all could just wrap all your injuries in hot pink, then I would remember what's happening with everybody. But
That's actually
but
not a bad idea.
I mean, really, and I tell kids I work with, I'm like, if you are recovering from injury and your coach is rushing you, make it very obvious that you are injured and use the words, ever since I broke my arm, insert
Right.
information
Insert thing.
here.
I'm afraid or it hurts
Yes,
or whatever the thing is.
just to remind them, because even the best meaning coaches are trying to juggle a lot of things and they really do need you to remind them what's going on with you. Even if you told them like 20 minutes ago in my situation, I'm like,
Yes.
remind me.
No, I feel this way still as a coach right now. Like sometimes I'm like, what's going on? Like, why haven't you done your X, Y, and Z? And they're like, well, I can't because I wasn't cleared to do that. And I'm like, oh yeah, just
Just
like
kidding.
write it on your forehead so I know because I forget sometimes. And like you said, it's not because we don't care.
Yeah.
It's because we've got 15, 20 kids that we're trying to juggle. You like the conversation we just had with their parents or the conversation we had with you last week or the injury that you is new from last week. There's just so many things.
Yeah. So
But
keep
that's the
communicating.
communication. Yes,
Yes.
communicate, please. I think
Yeah.
every coach across the world would appreciate a gymnast that comes up to them and says, whatever it is that they need to,
FYI.
yeah,
Yeah.
FYI, something's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I used to line my kids up at Beam and say, like one at a time, like just a quick, like five word check-in, so that you
Yes,
can, and then all obviously come to me if something you don't want to say in front of the group, but just so that we're all like, okay, now I know who's hurt, who's happy, who's whatever,
right.
and let's let's get on with our assignment. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So now I, like you, prefer prevention over crisis management and return.
Mhm.
I love to prevent the massive
Yes.
performance anxiety and the mental block and the like, it's way easier for everybody. So what are your kind of like the most common injuries you see with gymnasts and how people can prevent them? I know that's a big, probably a lot of information in
It's
one
a lot, but
question.
that's
Yeah, but
definitely
some
an important
top
thing to talk
tips
about.
for the most common injuries.
Yes. So the first thing I always like to say is like injury prevention is so hard to get the buy-in for. It's so hard for me to get girls to commit to because it's hard to see in the future, right? You're not seeing that 2 years down the road you have an ankle sprain. And if you would have done something 2 years ago, maybe you wouldn't have had that ankle sprain. So I think injury prevention gets overlooked, not because we don't know that injuries happen in gymnastics, but we never think they're going to happen to us. We always are like, oh, well, that's my friend who rolled her ankle or whatever. So my top injuries that I see the most common, especially, okay, so I just talked about this in my on my Instagram stuff for like the last week and a half. So I'm just going to talk about it here too, is preseason and beginning of season, I see ankle sprains like nothing else. Ankle sprains, broken feet, broken toes. Those are like the things that I see in preseason the most. And usually it's because we're trying to put big skills on harder equipment, take away pads, take away, our security blankets and move to get things progressed. And so we rush the process because season is coming. And sometimes we forget our technique and then we break things. So that's the number one thing I see is ankles, ankles, ankles. And I am a huge believer that ankles are the foundation to power and stability and staying on the beam and pushing off the bar and pushing off the floor and landing on ball. Ankles are everything. So if you can take 5 minutes a day to do anything, it would be to do some ankle injury prevention, working on mobility, stability, and strength. And if it's just heel raises, do a bajillion heel raises, right? Like if that's all you can fit in and you know that off the top of your head and you're like, I think this is going to help, stand there and do heel raises. That's a great tool. The other things that I see really common, low back pain. Low back pain usually comes from poor technique. It's usually because we spend so much time arching in our lower back and we don't arch enough in our upper back and move well through our shoulders, which will help that arching position. So low back pain. I see a lot of knee tendonitis, Ashgood-Slaughters, and then to kind of go down the chain, the Sever's heel. And a lot of those are growth related. So while there are a lot of things you can do from an injury prevention standpoint to help alleviate some of those symptoms and pain and stabilize and do all these things, sometimes it's growth related. So sometimes it's about understanding your body enough to know, is this pain severe? Is this pain coming and going? Is this pain getting worse? Is this pain that I can work through? And sometimes that takes a lot of listening and going inward and understanding your body and understanding how to communicate with your coaches if something is getting worse. So for those types of injuries, I always like to say, if you can get all of your skills done in a limited number of quality, communicate with your coaches and say, if the assignment is 10, if I do 3 really, really good ones, can I be done? And then you can do some rehab things. So some of that is about limiting the numbers. And then obviously I've been seeing a lot of, this is recent and I'll talk about nutrition but I've been seeing a lot of OCD, which is a bone issue. And a lot of it comes down to nutritionists, and there are some great gymnast nutritionists out there, so you can definitely find them. But that's a nutrition component, and a lot of that is overuse and overpounding. So like, if you can do anything, if you picked one thing to work on, it would be ankle stability, mobility, and making sure that you're really, really strong throughout your ankles. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, there is the overtraining and underfueling that is so, it's been so rampant for so long in our sport. I didn't even
Yes.
realize how underfueled I was until honestly the last couple of years. We just had this story in my family of we're late bloomers, but my mom did ballet. I did gymnastics. Like I think late bloomers and underfuelers and overtrainers is more like it.
Yes.
So what are some of like the red flags that people should look out for that they are not setting themselves up for success as far as injury down the road?
Yeah. So the underfueling is huge. And I also was extremely underfueled and had no idea, like not a clue that that's what was going on. But if you're really looking to prevent injuries, the top tips are rest. Okay. Teenagers need more rest than I do, than you do. Then they're going through a lot hormonally. There's a lot of changes happening and they need a lot of sleep. And I'm talking like 9 to 10 hours a night. And I know for a lot of teenagers, they'll listen to this and they'll say, that can't happen. I have homework, I have gym, I have school, I have, friends, whatever. But a lot of times there are a way to trim those things down. If you put your phone away and you stop staring at your phone late at night while you're scrolling in bed, that's a huge way to kill about 30 minutes, right? So there are a lot of ways to work on making sure you're resting enough and sleeping enough. My number one thing would be sleep and rest. I don't think we're sleeping or resting enough, and you are asking a lot of your body and you need that recovery time. So that would be first. Then the nutrition component. And I am a big believer in making sure we're intaking enough macros. And from macros, I mean protein, carbs, and fat. You shouldn't be cutting any of those out. And you should be getting a lot of protein in your diet, and you should be getting a quick carb fueling in the middle of your workout if you're training more than 3 hours. So, and by quick carb, you can look at all the there's wonderful gymnast nutritionists out there, but quick carbs like granola bar, fruit snacks, things like that, just quick carbs, or an apple would be a great tool. And then the injury prevention exercises, I personally have free guides available at all times on my Instagram page. I have paid guides that you can get that are more detailed. I have programs that you can enroll in. There are subscriptions that are all have wonderful prehab exercises. And I specifically, because I was a gymnast and I understand the amount of time you have and that you don't have a lot more time, I specifically make them quick. They are 15 to 20 minutes a day. You can do them between your turns. You can do them before you go to school. They're super quick. You don't need a lot of equipment for them, just things to kind of warm up the body or move the body or strengthen the body quickly and efficiently. So those would be my top 3 tips would be sleep, rest, nutrition, and injury prevention.
Yes. And those are also what will prevent your mental blocks, people.
Yes.
Yeah.
If your mind is not right because you haven't slept, you
Mhm.
cannot expect your body to function at practice.
No.
Like I know that no kids have experienced this yet in gymnastics, but when you are sleep deprived from having a newborn baby, your brain literally does not function. You
Yeah.
cannot do anything. And that's when you really understand how bad sleep deprivation can be. And sleep deprivation for a teenager can be getting less than 8 hours of sleep a night. It can put them, and then asking them to go through school all day and take their exams and do all this stuff and then go to practice and function mentally. You need that mental peace and you need to be rested for that.
Yeah. And I've heard some pretty creative solutions. Like my little brother was a level 10 gymnast, was class 1 back then, but he didn't take PE, but in our school district you had to have PE even if you were training 25 hours a week. So he
Yeah.
took bowling at the community college once a week and then got out of school at 11 and like he had this whole schedule where he was able to get all of his homework done in advance. And so he made it work, and
Right.
there are ways, people are like, but I have to take 700 AP classes. And I'm like,
No, you don't.
you, like you also have to function, you have to sleep, and you have to have a machine, your body that functions and allows you to do the thing you love to do. You have to have a brain that works,
Right.
there's balance. We're not good at balance, us perfectionists.
No. And we want to take all those AP classes because we're like, they look so good on our, and listen, from someone who has a doctoral degree and did 8 years of school, yes, the AP classes are great, but take AP classes that interest you. Don't just take AP classes to have AP classes and then kill yourself on the back end of taking care of your body and your health and all these other things for these AP grades, because they don't make or break your future. They really don't. And I'm not saying don't strive to be great. I'm not saying don't take the AP classes. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that you can do amazing things in life without taking 9 AP classes.
Yep. From a couple of recovering perfectionists, I think
Yeah.
I would agree. I failed out of my first year of college, failed out of it. And now I have a master's degree and a dream job, and, life is amazing. And I didn't
Exactly.
get into the school I wanted to get into. And, a lot of things didn't go perfect. And I'm so, so glad that they did, because it's exactly, I could not have dreamed up a better life for myself. So
100%.
perspective,
I got a
guys.
D in biology my freshman year, a D in biology, and I have a doctoral degree in human sciences. So,
It's going
it
to
all
be
works out.
okay. Bottom
It's going to
line,
be
it's
okay.
going to be okay. Yes. Okay. So, what is the most important, if you had to pick one thing as far as return to injury, what's the most important advice that you would give a gymnast who is returning to their sport after an injury?
Don't rush the process. That would be my number one thing that I have to tell every single client I work with. You are a gymnast. You are amazing, but you are not superhuman, and your body still needs adequate time to heal. The healing process is biological. It's not because you are an amazing superhuman gymnast. What you do is amazing. Who you are is amazing, but your body still needs the time to heal the bone, to heal the injury, to work through the process of recovering from injury. And muscle growth and change takes time. And you just need to not rush the process. What I see when people rush the process and they come back to gymnastics way too quick, they end up with compensations that cause other injuries, or they re-injure the same body part again. So just take your time, trust the process, work through it with a coach, work through it with a PT, work through it with a mental health professional, work through it with a nutritionist, and trust what they're saying.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's this other issue of fear of re-injury, which the research
Yes.
shows fear of re-injury is an antecedent to re-injury, that being
Yes.
afraid of hurting yourself will actually increase the chances of you hurting yourself. So it's like, how do I do this? So what do you
Right.
recommend kind of on that mindset and on like how they focus on re-entry
Yes.
without that over focus on re-injury? I mean, it's got to be kind of a balance.
Right. And I think the hardest part is redoing that skill that you got hurt on, right? Going back and doing that skill that you can't avoid. You have to do it and you got hurt on it. And I find that gymnasts want to like push through each step really, really fast in the process. And that leads to that mental block. They want to, they're like, okay, I can do the back handspring. I can do it. I've been doing it for the last 2 weeks. It's fine. It doesn't hurt anymore. And I'm like, I know, but it's not just about it hurting. It's about your technique. It's about your form. It's about how you're feeling mentally. It's about how your body is physically recovering from that back handspring. So you have to go through the sequence of events to be able to get to do those skills again. And if you go from point A to point Z without hitting all those points in between, that's where the mental blocks show up. That's where the fear shows up. And then you're terrified to do things. And that fear of re-injury usually means that you're going to go small. You're not going to go big. You're not going to go for that round off back handspring layout big like you did before you were scared of it. You're going to go small and you're going to try to land it really, gingerly. And you have to keep doing gymnastics big. The bigger you do gymnastics, the easier it is on your body and the better the outcome's going to be all the time. There is no exception to that in my mind at all. You have to go big for the skill. You have to remember your technique, and you have to trust going through all the steps necessary to get there. The fear of re-injury 100% leads to re-injury. I agree with that statement. Regardless of research or not, I agree with that statement. I see it all the time in the gym. It's about going big and staying, trusting yourself that you can go big and accomplish that skill.
Yes, yes. And the way I teach it is like first you increase your awareness of, okay, how am I feeling? Am I scared? Am I confident? How is my technique? You have to be totally aware of what point A is, which is I'm looking at videos of myself doing my back handspring so that I can see, oh yeah, look at that. I am closing my shoulders, or I am slowing down my speed, or I am, and then you work on that foundational piece.
Yes,
Like
for a
people
while.
for a while, like it's a
Yeah.
brand new thing, because this new version of you with that new stronger bone, or that new, like for me, like wobblier ankles because all my little poor tendons were maxed out, like this new version of me hasn't done this skill before. So I get to get excited at every baby step progression, just like I was brand new at it.
Yes.
That's what I encourage, is that you don't compare yourself to where you were at 2 years ago, or where your friends are at, or where you should be or you could be. You start at point A, which is what can I do? You make sure that it is solid, technically sound. You have got your coaches saying it's good, your videos are confirming, yes, this is what we want, and you trust it. Then you go to the next step. And
Yep.
and slower is faster.
Yes.
100% of the time when it comes to re-entry and rebuilding confidence, the slower the better, because it builds this solid foundation that you can then trust yourself from.
And I think, like, if there's any message that someone takes away from this, it would be that piece. Like, you have to trust the process. You have to be okay with going baby steps. It will lead to a better outcome than you rushing through the process and then having a result. It will be different, and the outcome will be better if you just listen to you, listen to me, listen to your parents, listen to your coaches, and just take the steps, even though they might not be fun and exciting, and they might be a little boring, but those steps are so important.
Yeah. And those steps don't time out with competition season. That's another
No.
thing. So
Oh
like
my
you
gosh, no.
say, every November, everybody gets their mental blocks and everybody breaks their feet. It's like,
Yes,
okay,
literally.
slow down and just be in, as I say, like the July mindset, which is you just start where you are and you get a little better. You start where you are, you get a little better. If you miss that first meet or that second meet, but your
Doesn't matter.
postseason is incredible, like, would it be worth it? Versus
Right.
you're like limping through, not living up to your expectations because you haven't done right by your mind or your body. It's not
Yes.
worth it to rush.
And like, if you're limping through that first meet, you're not going to make it to postseason.
Mm.
Like, that's the other piece that you have to remember. If you're limping through in November or December and you're trying to make it till March, April, May, and you aren't taking those steps or reflecting on what you maybe could do better or do differently or change, and not listening to your body or your mind and what it's telling you, that postseason is going to be really hard to get to successfully. And it would have been easier if you addressed it in November and December and missed those first couple meets, or weren't able to compete all 4 events, and then were able to shine in postseason. That's where it really, really matters. Every meet is a practice meet for the next meet. That's all it is. So if you can start with that first meet, even if your first meet is in February, and make it a practice meet for the next meet, you can have a really outstanding postseason.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about culture, because I just am so passionate about this. And not all coaches are really great at listening, and
Yeah,
not all kids are great at
unfortunately.
communicating. This is not all in a vacuum, but not all coaches are great at listening and even trusting PT advice. The coaches
Yeah.
sort of have their like, oh, I've been doing this 5,000 years and I know exactly what you need. So what's your perspective on how the culture of gymnastics needs to change to really help our kids have healthy bodies long term?
It is changing. I'll start by saying that. I do think it's getting better. There are a lot of egos in the industry just across the board. And if you think about who gymnastics coaches are, they're type A, assertive, leadership type people. They just are. And so they end up coaching and they end up feeling that kind of power of being in that position. And sometimes it can be misconstrued or utilized improperly. And then we have a lot of ego in the gym, and when there's a lot of ego and intimidation, kids are not going to come up to you. They're not going to. They're not going to come up to you, and they're not going to say anything because they don't think they can. And it's just such a tricky subject because I talk to parents about this a lot because they'll be like, can you communicate with the coaches about what my kid, can and cannot do? And I always say, and this can be taken either way, but I always say, I'm not going to do that. And the reason I'm not going to do that is because it's not going to be received well from me. A lot of times it is not received well from the PT. And it is important that you as a parent and you as a kid sit down with this coach and have that open dialogue now, because then in a couple of weeks, when she can't do X, Y, and Z, that dialogue is already open, right? We've already opened the doors of communication. We already are on the same page. And that kid is going to feel more comfortable having that conversation. And I'm talking a face-to-face, sit-down conversation about, this is where my kid's at, this is what's going on, or this is where I'm at, and this is what's going on. So that communication door, if it's cracked open, that kid is going to feel much more empowered. That athlete is going to feel much more empowered to go up to their coach and say, we talked a couple of weeks ago, I'm still struggling with this. Can you help me? And yes, culture needs to change, and culture is shifting, and things are getting better. And I think a lot of that is because of people like you and me that are finally coming out and doing this as a profession and feeling more open to talk about it. And a lot of those former Olympic athletes that have platforms that they stand on now, and they talk about the communication and the culture shift and all of these things. And just to go back to Olympic trials, a lot of kids got hurt at Olympic trials. A lot of them, right?
Yeah, it was so tragic
It
watching
was so tragic. And watching how that was handled compared to how it was handled when Dominique Mogiano fell on her head on a balance beam scale and was not evaluated, not looked at, not talked to, not communicated with after she did that, just expected to move on, shows the culture shift. I have never seen such an amazing culture shift until this Olympics. This is the first time I feel like I'm okay, we're going in the right direction as a sport. And it gives me chills. I literally have goosebumps right now, even talking about it, because all of us that have lived that see this change, and it's happening. And I think kids are in much safer environments. They're in a place where they feel like they communicate. But like I said, having that conversation, I think it's parents too. Parents can't be afraid to go in and say, this is my kid. I want to talk to you about this. It's not about who's in charge or who's in power or can we just have a conversation and so everyone feels comfortable. And I think that's a big piece of how you're going to recover from injury, how you're going to get over mental blocks. I don't know if that even answered your question. I kind of went on a tangent.
Yeah. Well, and it's also how we change the culture, is one parent having one understanding conversation with one coach. I mean, that is those little dominoes that fall where a parent goes in and wants to listen and wants to be understanding of a coach, which opens the door for a productive conversation. And the parent is getting educated and shares those resources with coaches. And if coaches aren't shifting, then that parent takes their tuition money and takes it to a place where their child will be nurtured. Right. And that is what and that gives me chills. It's that's what's happening in our culture, is parents are no longer accepting what was acceptable 10, 20, 30 years ago, because there are places where kids can thrive. And every coach out there that's I'm working for a jerk, I'm open a gym. We need you.
Please. Well, and I just think about it and I'm okay, when I got dropped off at gymnastics in the 1990s, there were no windows. No one observed me do gymnastics. No parents sat in the lobby. It was a very different time. And even that's different, right? These parents sit in the lobby, watch your kid, see what's happening at practice. That changes the culture right there, to know that you're an involved member. And it wasn't that our parents weren't involved. Like I've said multiple times, my parents were hugely supportive of me. It was just different. they weren't supposed to be in the gym. There was actually signs and rules against parents watching their kid train or stepping foot in the gym. Like that wasn't allowed. So it's changing, and it's just going to take a really long time. It's like all of the things that the sport has been like kind of known for is like that hard, you know, hard, got to be 15 and a star, and parents can't watch, and eating disorders, and all of these things that are going to take a long time to like shed from the sport. And there's a lot of really great professionals out there doing a wonderful job at trying to change it.
Yes. Well, yourself included. And so if people
Thank you.
want, the cool thing about your work is that you are totally virtual. So anybody
I
listening
am.
can have your support either one-on-one or through a DIY process. Would you tell us how they can reach you if they have an athlete who needs support in this arena?
Of course. So my main platform is social media. So I run everything off my Instagram. I am the gymnastics PT. And I have free resources. There's a link in my bio on my Instagram page. I have tons of free resources. I have one-on-one custom training. I work directly with kids. They have open dialogue with me and communication. It's like having a PT in your pocket. You can text me and I will respond. It is that kind of a program. I have kind of self-paced programs, or my hybrid program for more simpler injuries, less complicated situations. And I have recently launched a performance-based program for those gymnasts that want to do injury prevention, want to get stronger, are looking to enhance their current training. So those are all things that you can find on my Instagram. You can also always email me, thegymnasticspt@gmail.com. And I run it all myself. So I respond to the emails. It's always coming from me. There's nobody in the background. I don't have any assistance or anything yet. I might need some eventually, but it's been awesome. I've been doing this a really long time, but the virtual space is new. I just started the virtual space in April, and it's going really, really well. So
amazing. Yeah, I had a virtual PT during COVID. I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna,
right.
like, how is this gonna work? And it fully worked. I was like, well,
Yes.
the more you know.
I actually remember like sitting during COVID and looking at all these virtual PT jobs before I was doing this. And I was like, that's not going to work. Like, what are we doing as an industry? But this is like kind of the way of the future. And there's awesome, like I use this awesome app with videos and descriptions and all these really cool things. So it works. It works hands down. Everyone I've worked with has amazing results. So
yes. Yes. Well, thank you for the great work you are doing, Dr. Brittany.
you as well.
A pleasure to interview you again. I think we were much better this time, so it was meant
I
to
agree.
be. And yeah, keep up the good work. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good rest of your day.